How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to another episode. This is now episode 21, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Kian's been wrong every time. So now I'm hosting and I get to be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. I said wrong way too many times. But this is an NFL podcast. Just me and Surge here today. And you guys don't really get to see our dynamic that much. I've realized that on the channel, we talk a lot. We argue a lot.
I mean, you basically covered it. Now it's going to get very personal, or at least very childish. So excited for that. Excited for
Yeah,
that.
I feel like you guys have seen a few sneak peeks with it with the Jets and the Dolphins arguments over the course of the few seasons that we've been together. But now we've got a few disagreements that we'd like to air out. Just some first thoughts on that. Just let's take it. Let's play nice for a little bit. How does it feel to get shut out?
My first thoughts are, wallahi, we are finished. That was, yeah. I mean, honestly, I wish I could say I was surprised, and maybe I was somewhat surprised that we got shut out level bad. But this just happens every time. There's no consistency in the Robert Saleh era, in the Nathaniel Hackett era, in the Zach Wilson era, in just this Jets era in general. It has been nothing but inconsistency. And we saw again Zach Wilson, which he's had a few times this year, career game against the Houston Texans, where he balled out, had time to throw, was making accurate throws, was making some throws that made him the number two overall pick, and the Jets cruised to a win. And that was what the Jets were supposed to be this year. And then you see what the Jets really are this year,
You took
which
it with the
is
second pick in the draft.
I no
You could have been
everyone
a playoff team.
Everyone, no.
And you
Before
took
I don't want to hear. I want to hear. No, no, no. Every team before I know everyone loves to make fun of the Jets for taking Zach Wilson second overall. Every GM in the NFL in the Jets position would have taken Zach Wilson at number two. He was the consensus QB2 in the class.
look back at our draft coverage. I had Justin Fields ahead of him.
I'm talking about NFL, like the
Okay,
teams,
there you
every
go.
team. But anyways, that was the next week. I don't even blame him for this game. I think this game was just an indictment on the coaching. Nathaniel Hackett, leave my club. He is horrific. He is constantly proven that he is not willing to get with the times. The Jets are among the worst in motion. All of the play designs are like something out of Madden, like four verticals-esque stuff where basically you have to hope either Garrett Wilson will get open on a streak. And usually he's not even the first read. Usually the first read is either Tyler Conklin or Xavier Gibson or Breece Hall out of the backfield, or maybe Dalvin Cook if he's in the game. So it's just been horrible misusage of our best weapons, horrible play calls to get guys open. So like kind of it's basically everything Aaron Rodgers has to do it for him. Aaron Rodgers made this guy, it's more clear now than ever. If he gets back, hopefully he can mask how deficient he is as a play caller, because we know he's not getting fired. We know he's not getting fired because he's Rodgers' buddy. And that was really just kind of the largest disparity in offensive coaching you will see all year. And I think 30-0. I don't think it's fair to our defense because they were on the field again so much, which also, again, they weren't great, but they weren't horrible by any means. I just think just all of that, it's just a perfect summing up of our season.
I don't know if you could tell this. That made me really happy. Just
I,
listening,
I couldn't tell, actually. I
just
couldn't
just
tell.
just
It
listening
was
to you roll around in your loss. And I just want to hear your thoughts about Miami in general, from a slightly biased standpoint, because you want to see me upset, but from
mhm.
a generally unbiased standpoint. What do you think about it? Because your defense is elite. So that Miami team went in there and they put up 30 points. They played a great offensive game. I just want to hear your thoughts before I really go into mine.
Um, I think it was a Mike Boop Daniel masterclass, and I think he's had a few of those all year. I think Tua played a fine game. Again, I know you want me to say more, but
I'm
I
gonna
think
say what I'm gonna
he
say what
had
I
that he had that one beautiful throw to Waddle. I'll give him that. And he had a few other good throws. But if you look at it, I was looking at his passing chart, I think earlier. I found it somewhere. I think he had like 8 or 9 passes beyond 10 yards. Most of the throws were screens,
sounds right.
which
Yeah.
again, It was the right call. I'm not going to criticize the Dolphins for it. I think that one of the few weaknesses of this Jets defense that I kind of noticed all year, and it was even bad teams like the Patriots at times were able to take advantage of it, is that the Jets have struggled all year with misdirection and screens. And the Dolphins were able to scheme Jalen Waddle open. They threw the ball away from Sauce Gardner, and DJ Reed really probably had his worst game as a professional with the New York Jets. He did not have a good game at all. Um, the Dolphins, again, good job getting the ball out quick. We knew they had a lot of injuries on the offensive line. They did a good job. They played very well. I think they're another one of those teams that's just going to be so hard to beat at home, which is why I think home field advantage is huge. I think that Titans game, I still have concerns about your defense because respectfully, we're not an NFL level offense. But I still think, despite the concerns that showed about the defense, I still think offensively that doesn't change the fact that I think you're one of the toughest teams to beat on the road. And I think in that stretch run between you guys and Buffalo, which is getting closer and closer, we'll probably get into that later. It's definitely going to be paramount for playoffs.
So, what I really think generally, I don't think that the Jets defense is bad, but I think that Miami's offense clearly outclassed them in this game, and I wouldn't even put it up to them being on the field all that much. I mean, they were on the field a lot. It's a lot of the field position game, also a lot of turnovers and bad punts and here and fake punt. Obviously, that was terrible, but
Yeah,
there was just it was an easier matchup for the Dolphins offense because of their defensive performance. But I wouldn't discredit the offense at all for or the defense at all for playing against a terrible offense just because you got to beat the teams on your schedule. And it's something that we've seen with Miami all season long. The narrative is they can't beat a good team. And I mean, the narratives are just narratives. Wins are wins. It's a 10-4 team at the end of the day. What really moved me in this game was the excellent level of the depth on defense. I thought Duke Riley played his best game as a professional in that game. I thought Elijah Campbell, he went in and he really stepped up. And hopefully these guys don't see. I mean, Duke Riley's going to be on the field for the rest of the season because Jerome Baker is going to be out for the rest of the season. But hopefully Elijah Campbell doesn't see much of the field this season because I want the guys that are healthy to be starting. But it really was reinforcing for me to be able to see the guys that are not starters. Eli Apple went out there and had a good game. Guys that are not playing most of the snaps on defense, they went out there and they really performed at a high level. Bradley Chubb, he was responsible or partially responsible for the loss last week in Tennessee. He goes out there and I think he has his best game as a professional. Not just with Miami. I think that was his best game of his career against the Jets last yesterday. So that's really what I feel about the defense. I know the Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian led Jets is an offense that you have to beat, and they did their job. They shut them out. Offensively, took what was given to him. There was nothing he did that was wrong per se, other than there was one throw that he threw that I thought Quincy Williams could have picked off. But other than that, I think he had every throw perfectly. He didn't try to do too much, which is something that we've seen a little bit as we've progressed in the season. And the offense called the game as the game should have been called. No Tyreek Hill, you open up the field to Jalen Waddle and you see what comes out of it. Jalen Waddle's a top 10 receiver in the league. I've said it since the start of the season. He hasn't been given the opportunity to show it just because Tyreek is so dominant in this offense. But if you give Jalen Waddle the space, the tools, and the attempts, I think he's a top 10 receiver in this league. Raheem Mostert breaks the Dolphins' touchdown record in the season. There's still 3 weeks of football left to play. 20 touchdowns on the season, and that's with him splitting carries with Devon Achane over a good amount of this season. I'm very happy to see his growth. Offensive line pretty banged up, but it looked solid enough against a very good Jets pass rush and very good Jets front line. So this is just my overarching thoughts. I thought Miami had a really good bounce back game. Now, I don't really think that translates to Dallas. I think it's going to be a completely different football game, and we'll see how that goes when that goes. Tyreek will be healthy. I think Javon Holland should be good to go, so we'll really see how that goes. Just last thing on this topic, how do you think Miami fares against the Dallas Cowboys?
that is an interesting game. Definitely an interesting one because one thing that I think Miami will be licking their chops about is how dominant Buffalo were against that Dallas run defense because they got absolutely cooked. Like they were like at a certain point in the game, Dallas knew Buffalo were running the ball. They knew they were giving it to James Cook and they couldn't stop him. all game long. And we know that Miami does have a banged up offensive line. You do have who's the healthy lineman that you guys have? I know
So
you have.
Armstead's back. Jackson is looking like he's going to be out this week. And it's
Mm.
going to be Eichenberg in at center, which is technically not a healthy lineman, but he's been playing all year, so it is what it is. So it's probably going to be Armstead and Lamb on the sides, Cotton and Jones in at guard. Robert Hunt is questionable. I do not believe he will be playing. So
So
it's
it's like that's not
practically a
actually
backup
that
line.
it's not that bad though,
It's
honestly. I
practically a
think
backup line.
yeah, but basically the only guy that's really out long term is Connor Williams.
Connor Williams is out for the year. I think Austin Jackson's week to week, though. He might be out for 2 or 3 weeks now.
But I think one thing that we've seen, obviously, Miami have been able, obviously, running is a huge part of their offense. I think Tyree coming back again is just going to open up that offense even more. And will they be able to run the ball with the same authority as Buffalo? They aren't as much of a they're not as much of a vertical offense as they are more horizontal. So maybe Dallas will do better against that. I think they really miss Jonathan Hankins. I don't know if he will be back. I know he's nursing an ankle injury and his presence was sorely missed again in that Dallas game, but definitely a very interesting one. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see also Miami's defense go against a Dallas offense that again really looking to bounce back. I think they will. I don't see Dallas. I know it's an away game, and I know Dallas obviously have played their best at home, but I still think and a Dallas offense that has been one of the best in the league will not have two bad performances in the NFL. So I really in week to week in the NFL. So I really think this Dolphins offense is going to have to show up like they did last week against the Jets and um yeah, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to break it down pretty much. I think schematically, both of the defenses have the advantage. I like Vic Fangio's matchup against Mike McCarthy. Over the course of his time, McCarthy and the Packers had trouble with whoever Fangio was going and playing against. And then Dan Quinn has done a phenomenal job against kind of these horizontal offenses. I think that that's something that's really going to come into play. I think Micah Parsons is going to be all over the field, no matter where the motion is. I think it's going to be handled well by the defense. So it's really going to be who can pull through despite the scheme. So it's really going to be the talent of the teams that's going to pull through.
One thing
I don't think McDaniel's going to be able to coach his way out of this one.
One thing that interests me about this game, though, is kind of why I think one thing where Dallas, I think, could take advantage is CeeDee Lamb. I know, again, your cornerbacks did have a good game, but I think CeeDee Lamb, someone that can line up inside and out. I don't think Jalen Ramsey's going to travel with Lamb the way that he traveled with Garrett Wilson last week. I think he might be primed for a big game. Again, someone who is kind of limited in that Buffalo game. I think he's going against a secondary that is Eli Apple going to be starting next week?
I believe Xavier Howard will be healthy next week, which is very good for us.
That is important. That is important. I think he will. I think we'll see again a lot of Lamb in the slot. I think they're going to work to get him touches. I think CeeDee Lamb's gonna have a good game against Dallas, and I think that's why Dallas I think will win, bouncing back again. Again, it's kind of very tough to predict that when Miami just won by 30 and Dallas lost by 21, but it's a week to week league. I think Dallas are still a really good team. I think they'll win that one.
Yeah, it's going to be a very close game. If I had to give my prediction right away, I think Miami take it. Just I really have trust in the guys that I've been watching all season, but it could go really either way. Let's flip topics though from two really good teams. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers, who have absolutely imploded, and a lot of people are going to be giving the hate to Staley, and correctly so. He's been a terrible hire. He has not done his job since he's gotten there. But I think there's more to it. I just want to hear your overarching thoughts first.
Um, as a Justin Herbert truther, that game was simultaneously perfect and horrible to watch. Because perfect, it proved that we were right. That Herbert has been playing
And
in
that's where our
a
discussion's going to be.
terrible an offense, a team that has been destined to fail, a team that without him, and I guess with a lot of back, although we've seen a lot of backup quarterbacks still do well, but I think what you see with the Chargers is that replace Herbert for a league average quarterback, and this becomes one of the worst teams in the NFL. It still wasn't a very good team with him, but without him getting demolished by 42, it was, I know they didn't have Keenan Allen either, but at the same time, I just don't think any of those weapons are really just all of those weapons. You could see that they're just no one is good in that offense. There's really no one. I think Eckler has been completely fallen off. He's really not someone. Even checking, I know he's has even checking down to Eckler is like kind of not a feasible option as a second weapon. Everett, he's kind of aging as well. Palmer is not a good receiver too. Quentin Johnson drops too many passes. It's just, yeah, I mean, it just was just a horrible game to watch, horribly coached, and Staley was deservedly fired. Telesco was deservedly fired. I don't really see where the Chargers go for this. That's the main problem because they're over the cap by over 40 million or maybe 30 million. They have two big contracts that they might have to get rid of in Khalil Mack and Keenan Allen, which again is Herbert's really his only weapon, who is like good, but also at the same time his targets are getting a lot of it is force fed because again, no one else in the offense is trustworthy. So it's really I they really are going to have to completely I think they got to blow it all up. They got to completely kind of I think they got to go all offense. Even if that defense is bad, you got to give Herbert something to work with because this season has just been a complete mismanagement of an elite quarterback and has really kind of put the Chargers a lot farther back than they were a few years ago.
So I agree with you. They need to blow it up because it ended up not working this week and this year in general. They've
Mhm.
lost too many games with a quarterback who I would say is borderline elite. I'm not sure where I classify. Not saying like Justin Herbert is on that border. I don't know where I classify elite right now, just because the play of NFL quarterbacks is so weird this season. Like
I know.
I would say
Again, a lot of injuries,
he's
but
probably elite, but
easily.
I wouldn't say that they misconstructed this roster. I just think it worked out badly for them. I mean, coming into this season, Austin Eckler was supposed to be a top five running back in the league.
No. Anyone who actually like anyone who watched the Chargers, watched Eckler could tell he was falling off. Even
Yeah,
last
no,
year.
sure, sure,
Last
sure.
year
But he
a
came
lot of
into
it
the
was
season
fantasy
as of at
production.
least a very solid passing option for Justin Herbert. That's undeniable.
A solid passing option, not a great
Undeniable.
running,
No,
but
very good. Undeniable.
a below average running back
Yeah,
as
that's fine.
in
But
general. But
I'm saying as a passing option, they have Rashawn Slater, who has been one of the best offensive tackles in football over the course of
mm,
his career. And
mm,
the majority of that offensive line is solid, if not good. So I would say that's not a problem in the roster construction. The wide receiver core of Mike Williams, who unfortunately went down to injury, and Keenan Allen is absolutely good enough for a quarterback, regardless of how good they are. You can give that
but the
wide.
problem is I see in theory, yes, but the problem is Mike Williams has proven to be one of the most injury prone wide
Yeah,
receivers in the
absolutely.
game since he's been playing.
So you construct that and you bring in a bad draft pick. And that
Mhm.
draft pick went on to hurt them. If you go and you bring in Zay Flowers, we might be thinking about a completely different thing. But the problem that this Chargers team has run into is their inability to pull out of close games. And it's been a thing for them over the course. And I'm not going to go and I'm not going to blame Herbert for this because I've looked at this team, I've studied it impartially enough. Obviously, I'm
Mhm.
always going to have my vices. I want to be a hater, but
Mhm.
impartially enough, I'm going to say that the Chargers' lack of ability to pull out of close games is down to the play calling in the final 2 minutes on both sides of the ball. But that does not absolve Justin Herbert of all blame. And I'm talking about this dumpster fire right now of Easton Stick going out and playing possibly the worst quarterback game of football this entire season. But over the course of this season, Justin Herbert has had maybe six bad games. And
Mhm.
we're looking at a few people now, you included, who said I know you were joking ish, who said that Justin Herbert is the most valuable player in football because of this performance. And I think that is brutally untrue.
No, that's it. I think Look, I think Herbert, obviously I was joking. I don't think he's been the most valuable player in football this year, but he is extremely valuable. I mean, obviously he's
Oh,
extremely
everyone's
valuable. I
gonna
mean,
agree.
obviously, but I think his season has been significantly downplayed because of how bad the have been. Like people act like we're when we say Herbert has no help, we're saying, oh, you're just excusing him because he's had a quote unquote terrible season. And that's what everyone thinks because obviously everyone's making excuses and hypotheticals for him. But at the end of the
Have
day,
you seen that
even
graphic? It's if man, if man. It's
I've
my
seen it.
favorite graphic.
That's what I'm referring
Favorite
to.
graphic.
But going on. even in this non-hypothetical real scenario where we are talking about how bad the situation has it, he's still fifth in total QBR. He is
That
11th.
stat is so meaningless to me, but go on.
Okay, well, Tua is like fourth, so I don't know.
I know. I haven't. Have you ever heard me talk about QBR?
I have
Maybe
during
back in like 2021. Maybe.
well, during the original Tua Truther season, I think you did.
Maybe.
But
I
he's
have evolved.
been he no, but it's not just the QBR. But I'm talking about
No, go on. Go on.
literally. But what I say, but when I mention it, the reason why I mention it is to prove that by many statistical analysis, he hasn't been someone that has had a bad season. I think just
For his
the teams
standards, he's had a bad season. His
for his
standards are
stand his
his
for his
standards are he
standards.
should be an all-pro quarterback, a
Well,
top 5 quarterback in the league. In this season, he's been just outside the top 10 in my eyes. That's
no, no, just
well,
outside the
actually
top
no.
10.
Given the quarterback play, I'd say he's inside the top 10.
No,
But
he's
it's like
definitely inside the top 10. And I mean, again, maybe I think the only argument like you can argue that again statistically, maybe like by other standards, by other like passing numbers and touchdowns and those kind of basic like, eye-catching stats. Yes, he technically hasn't been in the top 10, albeit again, he's missed a game as well. But anyone who's actually watched Herbert and has watched him in the situation and have accounted again for the problems that he's had with his team know that he's been a top 10, borderline top five quarterback this
I
season.
wouldn't make that argument though.
I think, I
I've
think,
watched all right, to get this out of the way before we start going on to other topics because this is going to come up. We've watched a similar amount of football this season. So
yeah,
we can know that the if I say I've watched, I've watched. If you say you've watched, you've watched.
yeah.
I've watched a lot of Justin Herbert this season and I've been impressed. I have.
Mhm.
But there's just the level that he's playing at right now, and then there's the level that guy like Lamar is playing at, the level that a guy like Purdy is playing at, Tua is playing at, Dak is playing at. It's not this, and that's not to say that they're more talented because I think Justin Herbert is a top 5 most talented quarterback in the league, but in terms of production and level there of their general play, it's just not the same this season.
See, I see. No, I see your point. I think production wise, I do agree, but I just think he's being put compared to those guys that you named, like Dak, Tua, and Purdy. He hasn't been put in a position to succeed nearly the same amount of times, and yet he's still put together great performances. We've seen him have great games against teams like the Lions, the Bears, the Chiefs. He had a good game. I think the first game he had a good game. The Packers, we know that infamous
He had a
Quentin
great game in
Quentin
Miami
Johnson
also.
game. He had a great game in
Right.
Miami. I don't know why I forgot that one too.
In Las Vegas, actually.
Yeah.
Las
And I
Vegas.
think we saw, especially at the early part of the season before Mike Williams got hurt. And again, this is a very common theme that when Justin Herbert has his top two receivers healthy, he is undoubtedly a top five quarterback in the league. But we just haven't seen that enough at all. And again, the difference between, again, I hate to harp on Quentin Johnson because again, he's a young receiver. I think
I think
he
he's going to
still has,
figure it out. I think
I
he's going
think
to
he
end up
has, no,
being a solid
I
NFL.
think he has a chance to figure it out. And I hope he does. I don't want to just drag on him like everyone's doing consistently. But at the same time, it's obvious to recognize that if you swap Quentin Johnson for Zay Flowers, who's been definitely even at least like a top
Or
30
Addison, or
or
honestly
Addison
anyone
or
that they were thinking about at that
mhm,
spot. Like,
JSN, even I would say.
yeah,
If you get any of those guys, I think Herbert statistically is in the top five in all those categories. And again, I know again we're talking about hypotheticals here, but if you watch this offense, you can tell that it's valid. You can see all the drops that these receivers are making. We can tell that how often they're being held back by either a lack of a run game or Kellen Moore not making great play calls. I just think the Las Vegas game was just the culmination and the proof of what everyone's been saying and proof that no, it isn't just making excuses for Justin Herbert. He legitimately is being held back by one of the worst teams in the NFL.
oh, there's no debate that he's being held back, but I don't think it's by the players as much as it is by the coaching.
Oh no,
Like
I agree. I
that's
agree
what I
for
would
sure.
say, because
Well, I would
Justin
say I would
Justin
say
Herbert is playing with a competent surrounding cast over the course of his career. Over
I
the
don't
course of his
oh
career.
over the course of his career again.
But when we talk about the injuries, and I'm going to try as hard as I possibly can to not make this a comparison between Herbert and Burrow and Tua and Hurts, I'm actually going to use Brock Purdy in here. I'm going to say when Debo Samuel went down, Brock Purdy got all the blame. When Keenan Allen goes down, it's Herbert can't succeed under these circumstances. It's never going to be even, and I know there's a different play style, and I know it is different, but the general message of Justin Herbert is exempt to injuries and other quarterbacks need their weapons to succeed. I just want to I want to hear just as a general sense consensus because we've heard this with Tua. Tyreek went down this week and he played great, but when he went down against the Titans, it was Tua can't play without Tyreek. Over the course of Lamar's career, Lamar has been held very accountable when he hasn't had weapons. Over the course of Dak's career, he's been accountable when they haven't had many weapons either. So I want to hear why a guy like Herbert and a guy like Mahomes, they get bailed out of this conversation where I don't think their play has been that much higher than these guys that I'm talking about.
Here, I think Mahomes actually had another one who's had a sneaky good season. But going back to your point, I think the difference is that that those guys at least still even with those injuries have more than one weapon to throw with. When we talk about Purdy, even without, I think Purdy is I feel like undeniably he has probably the best supporting cast in the league of receivers. He has Debo, he has Ayuk, he has Kill, he has McCaffrey. He loses one of those weapons. He still has three very good weapons. And I think the entire, like, he really kind of significantly, his play went down. And again, that's not again to hate on Purdy. I think his quarterback play this year has been excellent. He's been playing great for the 49ers and has really elevated a team that really Jimmy G couldn't. But I don't think that can be equated to Herbert losing Mike Williams or Keenan Allen and then being left with one or zero adequate NFL level players to throw to. And we see that when Herbert throws to guys like Keenan Allen, he's efficient. He's accurate. He's often not holding him back. That's when their offense is at their best. But when he tries to get it to another guy like a Josh Palmer, a Quinton Johnston, even an Austin Eckler, even though he catches it, there's not really he's just completely fallen off a cliff production wise. And again, when we see guys like Tua, Purdy, and Dak, those guys that you're talking about have significantly better coaching and play calling than a guy like Justin Herbert, I think it's warranted. And again, going back to it, Justin Herbert hasn't had a terrible year. I still think production wise, he's been top 10, and eye test wise, I think he's arguably been top five. He's just outside, in my opinion. So that's my stance. I think again, there's definitely some points where he could get blamed for. I think to a very small extent, well, not to a small extent, to a certain extent, it is warranted that he hasn't elevated his teams in late scenarios. But I think most of that has been stuff that's out of his control. And I think if you put him in a situation like any of the quarterbacks that you just mentioned, it would be, um, I think he would fare a lot better than all of those guys.
Well, that is to be seen at the next rebuild or if he gets traded or whatever happens will happen.
Trade him to the Jets.
That would be really interesting, actually. I want to see how that would go. But
Herbert, Garrett Wilson. That would
let's
feed
move
families.
on to a little hypothetical situation here where I'm gonna bring in a couple of teams. I'm gonna ask you to bar schedules because I don't know how well we know the schedules going forward. Hypothetical situation is not the right way to describe this. Just a little game.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna run through a list of teams, and you're gonna tell me can they win a playoff game this season? And
Mhm.
that's even teams that you might think might not make the playoffs. Do you think they could win a playoff game if push comes to shove? So I'm gonna start with the Cleveland Browns. Do you think they can win a playoff game?
Yes, because they're going to be the five seed. I think they could beat the winner of the AFC South just because with all the injuries they've withstood, they've proven to be the team with one of the most depth in the league. Even with losing their tackles, I still think the interior of their line makes it a very good line. Obviously, they have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They have some good weapons like Amari Cooper and David Njoku, and Elijah Moore is also a solid piece as well. I think yes, they definitely could win a playoff game.
I would agree with that. I think that Cleveland is, I've said it on a few podcasts in a row now. I think they have the best defense in football. And Joe Flacco, as old as he is, as ancient as he is, he's playing competent enough football for an
Mhm.
offense that isn't really that stacked, but it just has good schematics, good, just fundamental ability.
Stefan,
I
I have a
think
question for you. Do you think Stefanski's coach of the year for what he's doing?
we'll get to that. So,
Okay.
my next team I'm going to bring to you is the Green Bay Packers. Do you think if they stepped foot in the playoffs
Ooh.
that they can go and win a game?
So we talk about like any of the potential opponents or just like,
So we'll say a division winner. Do you think they can beat a division winner?
oh well, they definitely could be the winner of the NFC South.
All right.
Even though they did lose to the Bucks, I still think I still think they could in a rematch could beat the Bucks in a playoff game in
Well,
Tampa.
actually, realistically, I'm actually going to take that five spot out because they're not going to be even close to better than the Eagles or the Cowboys. So, do you think they can beat one of the top three
Oh,
divisions?
okay. I think they could beat the Lions. I mean,
I think so
we
too.
did. We
I think
saw
so
them
too.
beat the
I
Lions.
think so
Actually, we
too.
saw them beat the Lions. So actually, that's not even really hypothetical. They did beat the Lions, and I would be really interested to see that. I think one big thing that is different with the Lions that I think will make them a much tougher out is the return of C.J. Gardner Johnson. We saw kind of how different that defense was compared to when he was in to when he was out. I think definitely we saw that Jordan Love was able to torch them deep and over the middle of the field. I think that changes with CJ being back. Um, I still think they could win that. I still definitely could see Green Bay, especially with how much Jordan Love has improved with those young weapons that are really starting to come together. Again, I know they lost. I think the main concern is their defense, but I think offensively they've got the offensive capabilities to do it against the Lions.
Do you think that the Cincinnati Bengals can win a playoff game this season?
Again, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. I think Zach Taylor, someone that I've been very critical of, I have to give him props. He's done a good job really kind of keeping this offense more than afloat from what for when Joe Burrow went out for Jake Browning. I don't think Browning had the best of games, but we still see they're able to put up points. They're still able to rack up yards. Joe Mixon, someone that I really was down on going into this year after it seemed like he kind of was starting to slow down, really is proving me wrong this year. He's had a really good solid year. Obviously, I think T. Higgins had his best game after a quiet year. Obviously, Jamar Chase, I think he's like day to day, he's injured, but obviously he's a huge weapon. They've still got a lot of weapons. They've got a good defensive coordinator and a solid defense in general. I think they can win a playoff game.
I'm going to give you two more. Do you think the Los Angeles Rams can win a playoff game? And given the same circumstances with as I gave
Yeah.
the Packers.
Well, I hate to keep saying the same answer, but yes.
Yeah, it
I
shows how
think
open the
all
league's
of
going
these
to be.
guys, I think all of these teams are similar, but I think all of these teams can, but I really do like the Rams because I think with the Rams, what's dangerous about them is they have a quarterback in Matthew Stafford that's been playing really good ball this year, especially recently. We're seeing them again where we thought they'd be rebuilding this year. Now they have two great weapons. Obviously, Puka Nacua, who's making a case to be already a top 10 receiver as a rookie. Cooper Kupp, obviously, he hasn't been like Cooper Kupp a few years ago, but he's still a great weapon. I think he's a number one caliber receiver, and as a number two weapon, obviously, that's just, in my opinion, that's one of the best receiving duos in the league. You still have one of the best defensive players in the league, a first ballot Hall of Famer in Aaron Donald. You have guys like Ernest Jones and Brian Young. That's who it is.
Yeah.
I want to, yeah, Brian Young, who've been having good seasons as well. I don't think many teams want to play the Rams. And I forgot to mention Kyron Williams, who's been one of the better backs in football this year and a solid offensive line. Oh, and not to mention Sean McVay, who is one of the best offensive, one of, I feel like recently is being more forgotten. I remember when everyone talked about Sean McVay and, oh, if you know Sean McVay, you get a head coaching job. He's kind of been going a bit more under the radar recently, in my opinion, but he's still one of the best offensive minds
Absolutely.
in the NFL.
I mean, the way he's been able to employ Nakua, the way he's been able to
Mhm.
employ Cup in the same system,
Again, like I
Williams
said,
involved.
a
This is
team that we really thought again would be, I thought at least, and I think many of us thought that they'd be in the running for Caleb Williams or Drake May.
I did not actually. I actually thought this
I
team had a
thought so.
little bit of a resurgence. I thought 7 or 8 wins, but
But I think obviously Puka came out of nowhere. That was the biggest thing for me. And obviously that offensive line being good as well. And Stafford, who I was kind of also a bit nervous about coming off that elbow injury. They've done a great job. I would not want to see them in the playoffs. I think they could. I wouldn't say they could just win a playoff game. I think they could win playoff games, plural.
all right. And the last one I have for you, and I think your answer might be a little different here. Can the Denver Broncos win a playoff game?
This one I'm gonna say no. This one I'm gonna say no. And I do like what Denver's doing. I do. I just don't I just don't know if I trust that offense truly yet. I don't trust it fully. I think their defense has really kind of done a complete 180 and they've really kind of fixed a lot of their issues. But I think offensively, I think Russ has been a good game manager. I think Payton's obviously done an amazing job with that offense. I like some of their weapons. I like what they've done there. I think they've kind of we saw against Detroit, a team that again doesn't have one of the better defense in the league. They really kind of slowed down. We saw them against Houston, another good team. They didn't really do well there either. I just don't trust them to go on the road and beat a team like a Kansas City or a Miami, or I don't even think they'd beat Jacksonville.
Okay. So I would agree with all of those. I think I would say I don't think the Packers would win a playoff game. I think that it's possible, but I would very, very much doubt it. Let's move on from this little game to a team I didn't bring up, and that's the Indianapolis Colts, who are now against all the odds with their backup quarterback, an 8-win team, and fully in the running for the AFC South. I'm gonna kind of touch upon this because I feel like I've kind of been silent over the majority of this video,
Hmm.
but how is this? Actually, I'll phrase you a question first, and then I'll parry off it. How is this team still relevant? How is this team still battling and winning games? Because this is a team without their best offensive weapon and without their quarterback. And yeah, well, let's hear what you got to say.
I don't really know. I don't really know because I think their offensive line's been good. I think their
Yeah.
offensive line has been good. That's definitely, and I think nowadays with how rare good play in the offensive trenches is, I think that's huge if your offensive line is playing well. And I think that they've had guys like Bernard Raymond who's really stepped up. Obviously, you got guys like Kelly, Quentin Nelson, obviously good pieces as well. Um, Other than that, though, it's kind of hard because their defense, you would expect, okay, they're going with a backup quarterback, not really that many weapons outside of Michael Pittman and I guess obviously Jonathan Taylor. You would expect them to have a good defense, but no, not really. They just win. I think I don't know if you were going to bring this up later, but I'm going to bring it up now. I think Shane Steichen's coach of the year because I think he's kind of pulling. I think what we're seeing him is kind of what we saw from the New York Giants last year, where I don't think they're as undermanned as the Giants were, but I think they're going into a tougher conference and they're finding ways to win games in a division that has been surprisingly good with two very good quarterbacks. Um, and they've just found ways to kind of surprise teams. They beat the number one team in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. They, again, like I said, backup quarterback Gardner Minshew, he's been solid, but imagine this team. I know Anthony Richardson is a rookie, but his rushing upside obviously was a huge part for that offense. And losing him, that easily could have completely derailed the season, and we could have seen them in the running for a top prospect like Marvin Harrison and Malik Nabers or Brock Bowers. But they've been the epitome of solid. They haven't beat themselves, and they've been a team that arguably could be 9-5 if it wasn't for that officiating fiasco against the Browns. So credit to them, credit to Shane Steichen again. And I think we talked about if I think I would trust them to win a playoff game. I wouldn't, but I think in the future they're going to be a very dangerous team in the AFC based on initial signs.
So I was gonna bring up the coach of the year. I don't think it's Steichen. I'll get to my answer when I get to my answer. But I think that the Indianapolis Colts are relevant, and I disagree with you, and it's because of their defense. I think that their defense, when push comes to shove, they go out there and make plays. And it's not really a statistical thing. It's more of a they've got the dog in them kind of thing.
Hmm.
They just know what they're doing in a big moment. And I believe their defensive coordinator is Gus Bradley, if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I
But I want to say that's right. But it's a really sound defense that has been doing the
yeah, this is Gus Bradley.
they've been doing the job when it really, really matters, and they score points. Zach Moss has been great this season. Michael Pittman, I think, has had his best season as a pro this year.
Mhm.
And Gardner Minshew, all credit to him. He's doing the job that is being given to him, and he deserves all the credit in the world if this team goes out there and wins the division. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Indianapolis, credit to them for beating on who's on their schedule. I know they had a win against the Ravens, but other than that, it's been a pretty light path to 8 wins on the season. But
I mean, let me go through it. I think I know they beat the Texans also. That's a good win.
yeah,
They beat the Texans. They obviously they beat the Ravens. After that they beat the Titans. They beat they went on a bit of a losing streak, but they beat the Panthers and the Patriots. Then the Bucks, which I mean, not a great team, but first in the NFC South.
yeah.
They they beat the Steelers. You know what? You're right. But I think, but at the same time, they've had a few big wins, and I think that's also why I would say I don't think they will um make noise in the playoffs if they make it. But credit to them, they've found a way to win a few tough games. They've competed in some tough games that you wouldn't expect them to, like the Rams, like the Browns, and yeah.
Okay. So now that Indianapolis is out of the way, I would briefly want to touch on Houston, but let's keep it a little bit more concise because we've got a lot to talk about and not so much time. Houston, I mean, they went out there and they won with Case Keenum.
Yep.
And words don't describe how important that win is for them when they have to
Mhm.
go into this division race, when they have to go into this playoff race in general. The Texans needed to go out there and win this game after they lost to the Jets last week. And the fact that they were able to pull it out and win on the overtime the way that they did, it shows that D'Amico Ryans has put in a very, very firm system instilled in these players that they can go out there and dog out results. They didn't need to be bailed out by Stroud magic. They didn't need to be bailed out by referees, anything of that manner. They went out there and they balled out. And even though it wasn't the prettiest win, they got the job done. And that's what's important against a Tennessee team that, take it from me, that team can be dangerous when push comes to shove.
You know all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to get that dig in. It's been a rough week.
Tear it easy.
But I will, but going to the Texans, like you said, for me, I talked to you a little bit about this. The Texans had to win this game. And it's not just because of playoff implications and all that stuff. It's because the Titans pulled off the most disrespectful move I've seen in a
Yes.
while.
Yes.
Moving, wearing the Oilers jerseys against Houston. And when I talked to you about it, I was saying that's cool and all, but it would have been so much better, so much more like cool if they did it when they went to Houston.
Hmm.
That would have been the if you're gonna be the villain, go all out, first of all. But
For sure.
second of all, Houston, just for that, they had to win it, and they did. Great win again. Like I said, D'Amico Ryans really again a defensive guy wasn't going to let his team get gashed like they did against the Jets last week. Did a good job getting pressure on Will Levis again. Tennessee's offensive line is really porous, so they were able to get a lot of pressure there. Case Keenum did what he had to win. Hadn't started in I think 2 years and was again performed to a serviceable level. Which again, this late in the season, that's all you can ask for. Stroud should be back next week, so that was huge for them. In again, an AFC that is just razor thin margin, so needed to have that one. Keeps them, I think, in the driver's seat to get one of those wild card spots, or again a divisional race. Again, I keep forgetting all these teams are 8-6 because I'm used to Jacksonville being a few
Yeah.
games ahead, but this is close.
Down
But
to
it
the
was
wire.
huge win for Houston and excited to see. I what's the remaining schedule? What's I actually have
They'll
to
have Tennessee again, I believe. And then they have they
they have Cleveland,
great game.
Tennessee again, and Indy. That's gonna be that.
Be fun.
That's
It'll
interesting.
be fun.
Cleveland's a tough one, and I
Yeah.
think they'd be favorites against both Tennessee and Indy, even on the road. But that's an interesting end to
Those
the
are
season.
three two game swings for them too.
Oh yeah.
So, well, Tennessee not so much actually, but moving in to what I think is an interesting part of the season where we're looking at Staley's out of a job now and the Chargers are in need of a head coach. The Panthers are in need of a new head coach now. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's it. I think those are the only teams that have fired their coach midseason.
Raiders
The Raiders
also.
fired McDaniels.
I think
McDaniels.
they're. I don't think they're gonna stick with Antonio Pierce. So I think
No, there's no
he's.
shot. There's
Yeah.
no shot.
Mhm.
So I would say it's safe to say that Rivera's out of a job after the season.
Yep.
I'd say it's probably safe to say that Belichick is out of a job after the season.
I think he might be going to LA. I think he's still
Yeah.
gonna be in the NFL, but he's not gonna be with New England.
And then the other one I would say, I think I'm not positive, but I'm pretty comfortable in saying that Salah is going to be out of a job after the season.
I would say no. I'm indifferent to whether or not he is in a job next season, but I think Aaron Rodgers being there is just going to keep him
Mhm.
in
Oh,
the
and
job
Eberflus.
regardless.
Eberflus will be out of a job.
Ever that defense has turned a corner. That's one thing I will say. Their defense has gone a lot better since even before, but especially since Montez Sweat got there. That defense has gone a lot better. So
And if
I don't think
Atlanta
he's a
missed the
good
playoffs,
coach.
if Atlanta missed the playoffs, Arthur
Oh,
Smith
Arthur Smith
leave.
has to be out of a job, in my opinion, just with the mismanagement of the offense alone. And I don't think Atlanta will make the playoffs. I think he's out.
So, given the guys I just stated, the guys that I said will be out of a job, who of them, and I'm including Salah in this because I think this will be your answer, who of them is hireable for a new team?
Well, yeah, I think Salah is just because of the job he's done with the Jets defense. Um, Belichick, I think is. I think
Yeah.
he's on his way to LA. I think that's what they want to get. They want to have a great defense. I don't. Rivera's out.
I would
Staley's
say, yeah,
out.
McDaniels
Um,
is out.
McDaniels is out. What's the last one?
Reich.
Reich is out. Reich is out. They're all out. I think is that only really is it only six? I feel like there's a few more
There's a
that
few. I did list a few more. Eberflus
Eberflus.
and Arthur
No,
Smith.
I don't. I just think he's so uninspiring. I don't think he's a. I think he's done an okay job with the Bears recently, but I just don't think he's just so uninspiring. I couldn't see anyone being like, "Oh, we have to get our we need a new innovative direction to take our franchise. Let's hire Matt Eberflus." That
Yeah,
would be pretty. That would be an oxymoron. So I don't think. I think he. Well, to answer your question, I think he's hireable, but I don't think he's someone people would hire.
yeah.
So
So now that I've touched upon that, who would your shortlist if the Jets can? I won't use the Jets actually. If
mm,
you were a team that just fired your head coach, I'm not going to give you a scheme. Who would your top three coordinators be to go after?
the top two are easy for me. It's Ben Johnson from the Lions and Mike McDonald from the Ravens. I think that's easy enough for
Okay.
me. Third one, third one is tough because again, while those guys are two good coordinators, we have to make sure that they're good, that they're coach head coaching material as well. I think Bobby Slowick, definitely a
Yep.
potential guy in that
Came to mind for
Texans,
me.
because that's someone that comes to mind, especially considering the job he's done with CJ. Um, think about it more. I think Joe Brady is definitely making, even with just the limited appearance, what he's doing with that Bills
Making noise,
offense.
but I wouldn't be ready to hire.
Making noise. I think it's a bit early though, but I think he's definitely someone that's on the radar. Jeff Ulbrich from the Jets. He's done a good job, a great job play calling for that team as well. I think he's definitely in conversation. But if I had to go with a third one, I think I think I would go with oh, man, it's tough. I'm still thinking. I actually, you know what? I'm gonna say Lou Anarumo because I think he's done
Okay.
it for a few years with the
Okay.
Bengals.
I
He's
like that. I
proven that
like
he's been able to do it in playoff situations, in big games. His defense has stood the test. I don't think this is a particularly. I mean, at least. Well, look, there are a few names that always. I don't think anyone considered Dan Campbell to be on anyone's radar until he was hired by the Lions. But
yeah.
in terms of big potential coaching names, potential head coaching names, there aren't many, I feel like, but so that was kind of hard, which is why I went with Lou. But I feel like there's going to be a guy that you could be like, who? And he's hired, but he could end up being a really good hire. So
So
it's
for me, I would say I agree with your first two. And then
mhm.
I hate to leave Slowick out because he's done such a phenomenal job. I'm actually going to go with someone you didn't even say. My third head coaching hire, if push really came to shove and it was a new head coach in town, I'm going Dan Quinn because he has done an absolutely phenomenal job with this Dallas defense for the past 5 years now. And I think he deserves a new chance.
I could see that. I don't think even think he was a bad coach with
Yeah,
the
no, he
Falcons, but I think the
got the
problem
Falcons
was
to the
his
Super Bowl.
obviously I think he did. I think he was able to get the Falcons to Super Bowl. And again, people say, "Oh, well, he's a defensive mind," but take it as from someone who I think has one of the best defensive minds as a head coach in the NFL. You can't be someone who's solely focused on the defense and be a head coach.
Of course.
I think Dan Quinn ran a great organization with Atlanta, and that was the best they were until he was fired. They haven't really gotten to the level they
Nowhere
were. I don't
near
think
it.
they haven't been to the playoffs since he left. So I think he's definitely someone that I could see. I don't know if he will go back because I think when you see with a lot of these guys like Dan Quinn, Vic Fangio, um, back in the day, you might not know him, Wade Phillips with the
Of
Rams.
course, yeah.
They kind of got these not really back in the day, actually. That makes me feel old. But I think with those guys, you see kind of them maybe stick in that defensive coordinator role after trying out the head coaching gig. I think teams would be interested in Dan Quinn for sure, but he was getting a lot of interest last offseason too, but he elected to stay in Dallas. I don't
Yeah.
know if he might be I think he might be content where he's at, but we'll see.
I think he's overperformed himself now. I think it's time for him to step back into those head coaching shoes. But that'll be all for the coaching segment. I've got a few more topics for you. The Buffalo Bills went and they blew out the Cowboys.
Mhm.
And talk about Dan Quinn and his defensive masterclass. That was not what we've seen from the Cowboys defense all season. How do you think I'm going to look at this from a Bills perspective because I think the Cowboys will be fine. This was going to happen to them eventually. It's happened to them already. It was going to happen again. How do the Bills carry on from this? Because they threw the ball. If I correct me if I'm wrong, they threw the ball 15 times all game.
15 times. Seven Josh Allen was 7 for 15, 95 yards, I believe.
James Cook looked like I think that was the best running back performance of the season from the entire season, anyone in the league. And I think that might be the way to go forward for them because you're limiting turnovers and you're playing football and you're scoring points.
Again,
Is it
it's
feasible to have Josh Allen throwing the ball 20 times a game?
It's what I was talking about. And I think it doesn't have to be this way every week. I don't think it will be because at the same time, Josh Allen is going to have to, at some points, he is, no matter, I don't like, I mean, as a division rival, we both don't like Josh Allen because he's a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback. At least, I mean, in Dylan's eyes, he's at least a good quarterback, I
He's a
would
good
say.
quarterback. He's not a
Yeah,
great quarterback.
I think he's a great quarterback. Consensus opinion is he's a great quarterback. I still think he's a little overrated, but I still
He's a
think he's
good quarterback. The
a
team
great.
got better when he did less. So like,
No, and that's the second point that I am getting to. At the same time, when this team stopped making Josh Allen throw the ball 40 times a game, and when they started really leaning on the run game, when Ken Dorsey was fired, that team got significantly better because they kind of neutered Josh Allen. That's what I talked about last week. They made him kind of they made him rely more on his running, which was smart because obviously he is a freak of nature. That's undeniable. And they relied a lot more on him in the run game. They relied a lot more on James Cook in the run game. They stopped making him into a conventional passer because that's when he really struggled because his decision making is rash a lot of the time, and it was really kind of unsustainable. It's why the Bills lost more games than they expected to. But when you make Josh Allen into someone that is in at least not small doses, but smaller doses to what he was playing, where he's not going to be turning the ball over every game because of his decision making and also someone that runs the ball, which obviously is smart considering he's one of the hardest players to bring down in the league. That team's going to look a lot better. And I think Joe Brady's done a great job not really changing up the concepts they're running, but really kind of the percentage of what they're doing, like in terms of running to passing. And I think this is a team in Buffalo, I think is built to survive in January more than previous teams, just because I think that's the best Buffalo offensive line has looked in a long time. What I've seen against Dallas, I think this is the best the Buffalo run game has looked in a really long, at least in the Josh Allen era. I would say maybe the first year they made the playoffs where he wasn't really a good quarterback, but I think it's definitely scary, I think, for the rest of the AFC because they looked like a team that can beat you in multiple ways where we saw last year in Cincy they lost because they lost in the trenches. They lost because when they couldn't throw the ball, they were screwed. So
yeah,
definitely a dangerous team.
no, absolutely. I think this team is formidable because of what they can do in the physical aspect of the game and the fact that Orchard Park is a fortress. You can't
Mhm.
win there. It's very very difficult at
Home
least.
field advantage this year compared to all other years. I mean, it's always huge, but this year, I feel like all the great teams are formidable at home. I
Yeah.
think I think whoever gets home field advantage, it's gonna go a long way to determining. Um, I'm not just talking about like home field, like the one seed, but who's gonna be winning the divisions, who's the two seed, who's the three seed. It's gonna go a long way to deciding um who's in Vegas this year. It's in Vegas, right? This
It
year?
is in Vegas, yes.
Okay, yeah.
So the reason for me that I don't think Buffalo is going to be anything to be nervous about in the playoffs is because the best four teams in the league, and that's or the best four teams in the AFC, are the teams that are going to win their divisions. And I don't like the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are that good, but they are undeniably one of the top four teams in the conference. Like I've been pushing my agenda against them, but they are. The Chiefs have a good run defense. The Dolphins have a good run defense. The Ravens have a good run defense, and the Jaguars have a good run defense. So you plug those four teams, and the Browns have a good run defense, even if push comes to shove and they find themselves there. I've said that so many times on the podcast. I don't even say that often, but I just don't think that Buffalo are going to be able to play their ground and pound game and do it well enough against a great run defense that it's going to be a possible thing for them to do that well in the playoffs. I think Josh Allen, I think he's going to be forced to throw the ball 30 times a game, and I think that's two interception territory. So,
Look, I think 30 is fine. I think 30 is fine. The problem is that they were making him throw at 40. And we've
yeah,
seen, and I think we can't we can't talk about Josh Allen like he's a liability because he
I
had
think we can.
a few
I think we
years ago.
no, I think
No,
we can
a
because
few years ago, he had one of
Josh
the
Allen
best
is the most
playoff
uncomfortable
games.
passer in the league when he's under pressure. He's gonna loft that ball 40 yards right into the hands of a safety. You saw it yourself. Jordan Whitehead had three interceptions just because he was bored.
When he
It's
gets, yeah, he's kind of like and I say this as someone with ADHD, he's kind of the definition of a quarterback with ADHD, where he gets
absolutely
like kind of, but I think when he's out of the pocket, when he's able to kind of like not like stand, because I think the worst thing he does is stand in the pocket. When he stands in the pocket,
yeah,
I
no,
feel like that's when he's at
I
his
agree,
worst.
yeah.
But when he's rolling out, well, when he's standing in the pocket, he's under pressure. But when he's rolling out, which I think you'll see in the playoffs, considering he's going against a lot of difficult fronts, and I think that's again something that Brady is kind of encouraging him to be more to not be that conventional passer that Dorsey I think was molding him into. I think it's going to make Josh Allen probably the best again, kind of Josh Allen and not you can't have him in too small doses because that worked against Dallas. It's not going to work against every team. Like you said, there are some good run defenses, but if you have to focus on that run defense, on that run game with Buffalo, I think not focusing on Josh Allen is not really a recipe for success, especially when he's had success in the
So I would disagree
playoffs.
with that. I would disagree with that because not to say he's a liability. You know
I
what?
think
I'm
a
not, I'm
lot.
not, I'm not even going to choke on my words. I think he is a liability in the sense that he turns the ball over at an incredibly abnormal rate. And if you can get Josh Allen where he's the least comfortable, which is where most quarterbacks are the most comfortable, you should be able to limit the check down ability of him. Because once the run game is shut down, the next thing that Joe Brady's going to have him going to is the check down. So you have to force him to take shots, which means you have to force pressure. And I think, although he has a great arm, if you get Josh Allen under pressure taking shots, there's turnovers all over the field. So I think that with the way that defenses are lined up against him, and I think if I'm smart enough to figure this out, I'm sure other teams are smart enough to figure this out. I think it's going to be a problem for him coming in.
Look, I don't want to defend Josh Allen. I feel really gross doing it, but like someone has to for the sake of the video. And what I will say is that I do agree that him taking deep shots is a recipe for turnovers, but let's be honest, it's also a recipe for a bunch of big plays
Absolutely.
because
But I think
that's what we've seen in the
at this
playoffs.
point
And I
in
think
Buffalo, in this point in the way Buffalo is constructed, though, Gabe Davis isn't going to be touching the ball that much. Gabe Davis is their deep shot guy. Khalil Shakir is their deep shot guy. I'm taking any secondary piece over that. You're looking maybe at a deep ball to Stephon Diggs every here and there, but over
you'll see a deep shot to Gabe Davis. One
overarching,
or two.
but overarching, sure, one or two, but that could be a pick, that could be a touchdown, who knows? Overarching, I think if you shut down the run, or at least make the run game a little, neutralize the run game. Don't You can't shut it down because it's a good run game. And then you make Josh Allen think. Josh Allen doesn't want to think. Josh Allen wants to launch. If you can do that, that this Buffalo team could be the best and it could be the worst, and you want to take those chances.
That's true. I think we've seen in previous years that's where they've been at their best. This year, it's kind of been them at their worst. Definitely an interesting situation. But I think last thing, I think then we'll move on. Um, I do think the reemergence of the run game in this Buffalo offense is going to make it so that we're not going to see the same Josh Allen throwing those deep shots where everyone knows it's coming. Everyone's kind of got their ears pinned back looking for a turnover. That was a stupid Madden reference. I've played too much Madden, but um, I think it's gonna be a different defense where they're not gonna be as keyed in on the Josh Allen deep shot, which is simultaneously obviously one of the most opportunistic, but also one of the deadliest plays. And you don't want to, and you're lying if when Josh Allen doesn't heave that ball 30 to 50 yards downfield, your heart isn't in your mouth. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, for me, it is just because Josh Allen has the ownership of the Miami Dolphins over the course of his career. But in general, I mean, when a deep ball comes against my team, I'm excited more than I am nervous because I think it's turnover
Well,
up.
that's psychotic. But
You think that's psychotic?
yeah, I
Uh,
mean, a deep shot. I mean, a best case scenario, it's an arm punt.
I'm happy with that, though. I want the ball.
Yeah, but usually, if oftentimes you're throwing deep, that means there's a guy downfield. That's a
Yeah,
guy open downfield for a touchdown.
I disagree with that.
Okay, what's your least favorite play? When is your heart in your mouth? Like,
My
when are you?
heart's in my mouth when someone catches the ball with 15 feet of space in front of them.
No, that that's fair. That's fair.
Like
But I
when
think, but
it's
that's
like
like for everyone. That's
no,
for
but
everyone.
like a short route in the middle of the field, that's when I'm nervous. Like when
Hmm.
someone catches, like, say it's a slant route, so even if it's to like Marvin Mims, a slant route,
Are you getting DeAndre Hopkins flashbacks?
yeah, a crossing route. Yeah, it's just
Hmm.
like when they have space to run and I know that my guys can't make the tackle, that's when I'm nervous. How about you?
Well, I just told you, deep shot. Deep
Deep
shot,
shot?
I hate it so like I think that's like even and I shouldn't be scared because I mean, other than this last game against you guys with that Waddle deep touchdown, we don't give up deep shots. But I can't lie, it's like definitely a terrifying play. And also, shut up, no playoff game,
Ah,
no playoff
ah,
win since
ah, ah.
2000.
Uh, 10-4, 10-4. But so offensively now, I think that's a really interesting question. Offensively, what set do you have where you're like, oh, we're not gonna do anything here? When like, is it like an I formation, or you're like, okay, we can't get the game going? Like,
Oh, I
where's
easy. That's
where's
the
the
easiest one.
where's the
Because
setup for
I
you?
have this is probably the bane of my existence. 13 personnel.
Okay.
I have a horrible contempt for that formation because Hackett puts three tight end sets and Randall Cobb as the only receiver in the game. Now, if I'm a defense, I'm like, oh, are they gonna pass the ball to Randall Cobb? That is a very possible situation. And then shockingly, it ends up as a 3 yard loss. So yeah, I would definitely say no matter what, even if Hackett's gone, I don't think he will be. I will always hate 13 personnel.
Okay. So the Dolphins don't have formations, so I'm not even gonna talk about that. We kind of just like everyone just
Positionless. Oh, I'm a liberal for the positionless football.
yeah, we just run around. We just have some fun on the football field. But I will say, third and short passes pisses me off to my
You guys pass the ball on
to
the red
my
zone.
core. I,
Mm.
I'm so happy that we stopped passing the ball so much in the red zone because Raheem Mostert has 20 touchdowns this season. It's always an attempt to boost Reek's stats or an attempt to boost Tua's stats. I just want the ball in the end zone, man. Like our
Mm.
running game is so perfect. It's like
Hmm.
we get in the end zone. Like it's so nice to see. But yeah, when we have those third and shorts and we run a screen pass to Tyreek or we run a little misdirection throw to Mostert and he gets stopped behind the line, it angers me so much.
Mhm.
So that finishes up my topic list, but I actually have thought a few more things just to kind of let's play a few games. Let's play a
All
few.
right, okay.
So we were talking about the Packers and how they can beat the Lions, and it made me think about Jared Goff and how he would fare in a playoff game against playoff opposition in the NFC. So, what quarterbacks in the NFC would you be more comfortable with than Derek Carr? And this could be an injured quarterback. I don't care if you say
Oh, we're
like
talking about Derek Carr.
no, Jared Goff.
You said Derek Carr.
Did I say Derek Carr?
You did.
Jared Goff.
Hmm.
How did I say
All
Jared?
right. I don't know, but I guess. Well, I wouldn't say Derek Carr. I would say Hurts. I would say Purdy, just because I think he is, even though he has obviously a lot better weapons, I think he is actually a much better quarterback under pressure, which obviously you're going to go against pressure in the playoffs. That's just something that's going to happen. Dak, I'm also more comfortable with. Even on the road, I'd be more comfortable with him. Um, Hot take, I'm gonna say Jordan Love. I'm gonna say Jordan Love just because I really think he's turns it on. But I think the Lions obviously have a much better, kind of they're further along in their roster construction than the Packers are. But I think Jordan Love has really kind of shown a oh, he's kind of, do you hear that?
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but okay.
No, my bad. No, I just but anyway, I had I would say Jordan Love just because I think that I think he's really kind of elevated the Packers in a way that I don't think Jared Goff would because I think he has a much better team. I'm trying to think. Who are the other quarter? Oh, Stafford. I would take Stafford over him definitely.
Okay, so for me, I mean, unless you have anyone else, I don't really think there's anyone really
Who
other
are
than
who are the other ones?
there is one guy that is coming to mind for me, but I'll let you figure it out if you want to. If you don't want to figure it out, it's up
Nick Mullins. That's
to
definitely this. Um, oh, Gino. No, I would take Goff over Gino. So,
okay. So for me, I think Hurts, Dak, Purdy, those are unquestionable. Those are
mhm.
the three best quarterbacks in the conference. Then after that, I wouldn't take Love over Goff, and pretty much for the opposite of the reasons you said. I just think Goff is a more seasoned veteran of a playoff game, and he's gone to the Super Bowl, and he's definitely more comfortable under pressure. He knows what to do in any circumstance practically. He's kind of like a grizzled vet, which is scary at this point because I was a 2016 draft class.
Hmm.
But I would take him over Gino. I would take him over Kirk Cousins. I would take him over everyone you said
I
there's
would. I mean, I know Kirk Cousins injured, but I would take Kirk Cousins over him
no,
easily.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Mm,
But
Kirk was playing at like an MVP level before he got hurt. I don't know.
there's one guy that you didn't list that I kind of intentionally rushed you out of so I can talk about it. I would take Kyler Murray. I think that Kyler Murray
Oh, I thought we were only talking about teams that can make the playoffs, though.
no, I was talking about any quarterback in the NFC.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously I take Kyler.
I don't think it's as obvious, but I would take Kyler Murray over Jared Goff. I mean, if you agree, it's kind of I don't need to explain it to you, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think Kyler is someone that again, he's dealt with horrible offensive lines for a large part of his career and is again has found a way to still have top 10, top 5 at points level production. I know a few years he was really close to winning MVP before falling off towards the end of the season, whether it be Cliff Kingsbury really being a below average head coach or injuries holding him back. Yeah, I think he's definitely over Goff. I would take him.
Okay. So that's the last I'm gonna have of player comparison. I've got just one or two more things that I want to talk about. The one that I'm gonna bring up right now is it's now, I believe, maybe 12 weeks into the season after the whole thing with Taylor Swift being with.
Wow,
I'm
I
bringing it up
never
because
thought you would bring it up.
I'm bringing it up because it's a good podcast topic, and even though I hate that it's getting so much media attention, I
And you're
have
giving it media
I
attention.
am giving it media attention. Yeah, I'm in the media. But
Yeah.
what is the most annoying thing about it, if anything?
I honestly think I mean, hot take, I don't think it's been as bad recently.
I
I
agree.
think earlier it was insufferable because I guess it's like shiny new toy syndrome, and obviously they're trying to attract a new fan base. Um, I think it's been fine recently. It's gone to her a few times. It hasn't really been overdone or like I thought it was going to be played as like a constant main storyline the whole season, but I think it hasn't really overshadowed
They've
anything.
shied away from it. I'm very happy about that. I
Yeah,
had a
I think
problem.
it makes sense in small doses. At the end of the day, I get it. They're trying to
Yeah, of
go to a
course.
new fan base. I mean, I'm fine with it at this
Yeah,
point.
I don't have a problem with the way they're handling it right now. And what I'm actually finding to be super fun is that Taylor Swift is becoming a football fan. Like you could see her in the box.
No, yeah, no,
She's
that's
getting
that's actually
the
funny. I
refs.
think there was
I
one. It's
love it.
like she's just like you can see like kind of like all those like where I think it's like kind of like this thing with like all like Taylor Swift like fans too, where they're kind of getting it's like how is that not pass interference? Or
Yeah,
before then
like
it's like is that for I don't know. I mean, obviously some people I'm sure there are actually a bunch of people that were fans of both, so I don't want to like
yeah, of
say
course.
all fan, but I think but obviously there were some fans that just got into it just because
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. So I think that's been pretty cool. But
Yeah, I found a few videos that I found really funny. Just like her
yeah.
in the box, just being like, "What the hell?"
Like when Kelsey
When
flopped for
Kelsey
that one
completely
early,
flopped.
and then she's
Yeah,
like, "How is that not pass interference and that stuff?" But yeah,
yeah, and yeah. So for me, I mean, her fans are always going to be insufferable, just from a purely a musical standpoint.
Did you see that thing where like someone made a fake report about how Hunter Henry said yeah she went to the game with Kelsey and she's gonna be coming back with me, and it was a fake report and it got like
Holy fit.
over like
Yeah,
two
yeah. I
million
saw that. I did see that.
and
So
then that poor man's phone is getting flooded with like death threats,
man,
like hate message. Oh man, like I feel bad for him, but that was definitely, yeah, it's definitely, yeah,
yeah. So
crazy.
her fans just musically for me are just insufferable because she makes very below average music in my opinion. Please kill me, Swifties. I'd love to have this argument, but
I can't speak on it. I
yeah.
can't speak on it.
And yeah, she makes bad music and they bother me because they make her seem like she's the greatest musician of all time.
I
And
didn't realize till recently how worshipped she was. I mean, I've heard
oh my
about it
goodness.
obviously, but I didn't know
Oh,
like I didn't actually realize to the extent until I actually saw
dude,
like how many people are like talking about her under everything that's like somewhat to do with her. I'm like,
they started cancel culture. They canceled Kanye before it was like
how did
reasonable to
that?
cancel
I
Kanye.
know. Okay, now we're completely getting off football, but you
But
know I'm still down to talk about it. I actually don't know this. I don't know about it.
so you don't know about the whole thing?
I dead ass don't know about it.
You don't know. So
Okay,
when
this is turning into it's no longer the back pocket about sports. We're just talking about
we're just talking.
Anthony. We're talking about
But she Kanye walked onto the stage at the VMAs when she won Best Music Video, and he pretty much just like said, "Yeah, I respect you and all, but Beyonce had the best video of the year." And he like walked on the stage in the middle of her speech, and there was this whole thing. But like,
oh shit.
yeah, uh, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. But to get back, I have one more prompt, and then I'll leave it alone for the day. We'll uh we'll get this out to you guys as soon as possible. And if you guys have been watching through us kind of just talking, I appreciate that. What is your least favorite NFL Twitter account?
Oh, okay. Least favorite. Um, damn.
I'll start you out with my answer if you don't
Yeah, go
have
ahead, go
it
ahead,
now.
go ahead.
So I'm between a few. I don't like MLF football.
Oh
MLF
yeah, it's
football
kind of
bothers me. That being said, I think he poses some really cool questions sometimes that the quote tweets are fun to look at. So I'll give him some credit where credit is due. He's not my least favorite. My least favorite is NFC North News. I don't know if you know about
never
this.
heard of that account. I'm
This
not even.
account, NFC North News, posts completely fake stuff all of the time. Completely fake. I'm actually going to screen share it real quick. Uh, there was a report about Alexander Madison.
But he's not doing it like just to like get people, like
It's
ball sack sports
completely
or like
no,
just
no, no. He's doing it for it's. I don't know what the reasoning for it is, but it's crazy to me that this has worked for as long as it has, and this person hasn't been taken off the platform. NFC North,
Elon's Twitter.
and I'm scrolling right now. Here we go. I'm gonna screen share it real quick. Can you let me screen share?
Oh yes. Request, por favor.
I can't. You gotta just do it yourself.
Oh, okay. Oh wait, well, how do I screen share for you? Yeah, it's fine. You
Yeah.
know,
All
it's
right, I'll read some of them out for you anyway. Breaking Vikings Justin Jefferson commits to play in Rashard Mendenhall's all white versus all black bull if it indeed
that's
happens.
the no, that's like a troll account.
Hear me out, hear me
Yeah,
out,
you're
hear me out,
getting
hear me out,
trolled.
hear me out, hear me out, hear me out. It's a troll account, but it comes out at times to be very, very realistic, and it's fooled me multiple times. Okay, so
No way you got by that.
breaking news. It was just in the middle of the game. I mean, breaking news: quarterback Nick Mullins has now torn his ACL. Just like,
Why?
just to it's mostly Viking stuff. Quarterback Justin Fields has gotten it. Just complete bait, and it fools me. And yeah, but
Mm. Have
anyway,
you muted that account yet or blocked
I
it?
have muted that account. Yeah.
Mm. All right. I'm gonna go with the, you know what? Now I've thought about it. Pretty easy answer for me. Dove Kleeman.
Oh, that's a good
Bro
one.
is
That's a good one.
bro
That's a
is
good one.
weird. He's like, bro, like it's so funny to see him pretend that he's not an aggregator account and try and distance himself from like the accounts like
Yeah.
MLF football and
JPA.
JPA. And he's like, you stole my content. It's like, bro, you steal content, but it's just more professional. It looks more professional because you have like a fake avatar. Your
Yeah.
name of Kleeman.
Yeah, you seem like you're a beat reporter, but you're
But
just
you're
like,
not. Like I
dude,
thought for a while he was an actual insider.
When Garrett Wilson went up,
Yes.
that was my favorite like Jets
When he
moment.
was I was like, I was so excited. And it's like, nah, sorry, I just got fooled by Dub's tweet. And then Dub tweeted after that. He was like, I aggregated back to Trey Wingo. I'm like, bro, you can't take credit for other people's work and then say, oh, actually, it was him who reported it.
Yeah.
So
So, all
that's
right.
pretty easy for me.
So that's gonna wrap up our episode. I don't know how much of this is gonna be edited down because we kind of went a little overkill at the end, but I had a great time. Let's
Oh,
talk ball
definitely.
again soon. This is the Back Pocket Podcast. We're so close to 2,000 subscribers. I'm
We got hit
very
before the end of the year.
gotta hit it before the end of the
Where
year.
Dylan
No,
will
no, no, no,
sleep
no, no, no.
naked at the
No, no, no,
next
no, no, no.
at the UMass Missouri game next
It was
year.
always gonna be you. It was always gonna be
But
you.
it's gonna be you. I
My
changed
name
it
was
up. I
never
switched it up.
stated
I
in it. No,
switched
no,
it
no.
up. I changed it up. I changed it up.
You don't get the chance to
I
switch.
do. I do. Keen
If
and
I
Charlie
ask
are
the group
here. I
chat
changed
right
it.
now
I
who's
changed
doing the
it.
streaking, if I asked right now who's doing the streaking, who's it gonna be?
All right. Well, I guess you'll find out in the next episode.
Yep.
We'll talk about it in the next episode.
We'll see you later.